last time at the end of the discussion for the Cabaretto, we came to the conclusion that even though we had this really cool ability at rank 3 where you could clone yourself once you'd gotten to a certain threshold of health, that unfortunately it would result in the class's identity not meshing well with the mechanics of its abilities. We didn't want for the class to turn into a health management class, and it had every indication of going that way. Now, because of that change, all of the other abilities that we'd already made needed changing to some extent, and so we went back through and edited them. But the challenge that we're left with is that we're still on rank 3, and or sorry, we're on rank 2, which is when you get your mask, and we're trying to figure out if it should be at rank 3 or not, and what the benefits are one way or another, um, for keeping it there or moving it. Before we go any further, just so everyone is acquainted with who's going to be, I think the guy who burped in the background was JJ.
Yeah, I just got back.
Okay, cool. So that's JJ. Um, he is a partner in crime for the studio. He's been working on the design for this game for a long, long time.
We
This
rob people.
we rob people. Yes, uh, rob people of their cool design ideas and put them into the game. Um, the other guy who's here is John. He's a more recent addition to the team,
Hello.
and he's going to be helping us with the design today. And I'm Kirby, um, the person who you have probably heard before if you've tuned in to the stream, and whom you will more than likely hear again uh, copiously. Probably way too much hearing from me.
He's the CEO.
Let's not do titles. CEO, then you're the other CEO, cute executive officer. So I guess what we're doing now, for you guys, what we'll try and do at least is go through ranks 1 through 3 and try and catch ourselves and catch you guys back up with why we were doing what we were doing, and what sort of goals, what sort of things we were trying to achieve. So so let's start at rank 1. Rank 1 is 7 mana. It's an active. For melees, which the Cabaretto is, you begin the game at level 1 with 20 mana. Um, so this is roughly a third of your mana to use this ability. And you do have base mana regen, so of 3. So you could use it more than 3 times. But it's a sizable chunk, I suppose. And it's an active, so you can attack and it won't interfere with your ability to use this. I don't know how pertinent that is to your understanding of the ability, but I figured I'd mention it. So you may have target ally in your row become the target of an attack or ability that targets you. And while we said target 3 times there, hopefully it's somewhat legible to you as a viewer. If you have any suggestions as you're watching, please feel free to fire them off, questions, etc. But
I will be watching the chat box.
excellent. Yes, John is our chat correspondent. He's on the chat front. Um, so basically, what this allows you to do is, at least the first part of this ability, it allows you to switch an ally on your row to being the target of something that's targeting you. Um, it's a displacement effect, an evasion effect, and the function of the ability when you get it at rank 1 is limited to that part and the part which comes after the second sentence, the third sentence, which says the targeting enemy receives direct damage equal to half the damage dealt. So this is an offensive reposition, basically, that sort of harms your teammate. Although you can use a tank to mitigate the damage, or you could put a squishy out to deal more damage to the enemy. Depends on what tactic you're trying to use, what kind of enemies you're up against. The second part of the ability will only show to the player when you unlock the ability which gives you a mask. And as such, since it's sort of a core component of the usage of the ability, we want to put the mask as early as we possibly can without it being um, too early. The issue with putting it at rank 1 is that in our game you can spec into multiple classes, so it would be a disproportionately powerful rank 1, and we don't want to start the game with giving players passives because they don't provide you enough interaction with combat anyway. So pretty much the earliest that we can put this mask is 2, and the latest that we'd like to put it is 3. And that's a question that we'll be addressing shortly. But
It's
anyway,
also worth note that the rank one seems really powerful as an active, but the thing is, if you're trying to dual spec into this class and abuse the rank one as a active, the other classes already have actives that work with their kit better within their kit. So you'd either it's kind of like a trade-off, like you can use this like taunt to make yourself more survivable, or you could like use an active from someone else's kit that you might have invested more into that has more synergy with the entire kit. So it kind of balances itself out there as far as power of a rank 1, 2, and 3 is concerned.
I agree with JJ there. That is certainly a concern. Multi-specking into different classes, you don't want the power levels of certain actives to be higher than any other active. And so, if you look at all of the abilities on a sliding scale, all of the rank ones should be roughly equal in power level. All of the rank twos, etc., all the way onto rank 10, and each skill should be sequentially more powerful because every time you level up, you're unlocking a skill point um, to level with, basically. Sorry, when you level up, you unlock a skill point to unlock abilities with in whichever tree you choose. Um, the other part of what JJ said that's pertinent and something that I think we should explain briefly is that there are two speeds of actions in this game. There are basic speed actions and active speed actions. Basic speed actions are things like attacking, um, moving, and using a basic ability. And when you do any one of those things, you can no longer take a basic action during a combat cycle. And I'm saying combat cycle to distinguish it from your turn. A combat cycle is a representation of all of the turns taken by every single player in the match before it comes back to your turn. Um, So in a combat cycle, you can take one active speed action, one basic speed action, and basic speed actions can only be taken during your turn. Um, Whereas active speed actions can be taken at any time during anyone's turn. Um, and that's what allows this ability to exist and work as it does, because it obviously wouldn't make sense for you to redirect an attack that isn't incoming because it's your turn. Um, or basically it wouldn't make sense. This ability wouldn't make sense if there weren't some level of interaction on opponents' turns. And the way that we designate that interaction generally is by calling an ability an active. That's the tool that we have. Uh, did I get all the fundamental stuff out of the way?
I think so.
I think you gave a general idea of what you're working on here.
Okay, good. Hopefully, if you guys start watching the stream regularly, um, we'll get to a point where people are more familiar with the game and there'll be less repetition of that information. But it might not be that that's the case. And if that's true, then we'll set up an FAQ. And actually, I should probably just set that up anyway.
A fact.
It might help.
Yeah, we'll set up a FAQ in the info bar thing that currently has our schedule and donation info that's non-existent. Okay, so now we get to the rank 2 and the rank 3, and as of right now, there are significant questions about which one should be where. And it may seem unimportant on the nose of it, that one thing be in a certain position against another thing, but all of these abilities are unlocking sequentially. And if the player feels, one thing that's important is that the player feel like their kit is slowly evolving and gaining additional usage, and that the abilities that they have are becoming more interesting and are achieving a greater level of depth and complexity. Uh, and the other thing that's important, I think, at least, is that the power level follow in a in an order that makes linear sense. The rank 2, I mentioned earlier, the rank 2 should be less powerful than the rank 3, and so on and so forth. And so it's sort of crucial to identify, which ability is weaker, I guess, and put that underneath. But also, something else to consider is if this ability is weaker isolated, but is stronger coming after another ability, um, then you sort of have to weight it differently as well. Um, One of the things you might notice is that the rank 1 doesn't have its full usage unlocked from the very beginning. You have to get the mask before you can do everything that you want to with rank 1. And I mentioned that we're hiding, the portion of the ability with the mask from the player at the beginning. The reason that we're doing that is because we feel that a player can kind of. We feel that it's cheap and sort of lame to give the player an ability that they can't fully use. Uh, and we'd rather have it feel like they're unlocking additional usage than, have it feel like they're getting an ability in which not every facet of it is immediately available to them. And while technically the way that we could do that is by having the additions to the abilities be shown on the rank 2 passive, the way we've chosen to represent it, just for ease of discussion, is by putting what's unlocked on the ability itself. And that's sort of like an aesthetic thing and probably unimportant, but I felt I should discuss it anyway. It might be something that you run into when you're designing your game or working on designing something where it's easier to read for a programmer, but it doesn't make much sense for a player.
I got an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, have the mask unlock at level 1, but not really do anything besides unlock the second abilities for the first two, and then have it upgraded as an additional part of rank 3 to make it like the true version of the mask.
Sort of like a key to a door where you can't really open the doors until you have the key, in a sense, where it's unlocking. I can kind of understand what JJ's going with here.
So you want the mask to be available at rank 1.
Yeah, but like it's not doing everything. It's not
Uh,
doing anything besides unlocking the second ability. Then when it hits rank 3, it's doing what we intend for the mask to do when you put it on. That effect that the mask gives is going to be unlocked at rank 3, but the duality of each, rank 1 and 2 will still be preserved without giving you access to a really powerful mask ability early.
isn't it? So
I apologize. I'm away from the chat right now.
no problem.
It's having some trouble reconnecting to the chat for me.
Um, so what you're proposing is that we give them a passive at rank 1.
No, tack on. You can put on the mask on rank 1, and then
Oh, you're like adding a passive to the active,
no, the mask. Yeah, technically, like to put on the mask and to take off the mask.
right? But you
Just
don't have
as
mask yet, technically.
yeah,
I
Maybe there's like two rank ones where you get them both
well,
when you put 1 point into it.
I don't think that our current implementation for the rank one is bad. I think that as a rank one, it actually is. It feels like a rank one without that second line of if you
Yeah,
were wearing the mask. I
yeah.
I'm just sort of wary. Like the thing I would like to have is something that interacts with the rank one at rank two rather than putting the mask there. But the issue that we were having with the current rank three that used to be the rank two. I'm sorry if this is confusing to anyone. Is that it used to do something very similar to what rank one was doing. It was like just more of the same damage repositioning. And it kind of is still. The next instance of damage that you would take during this combat cycle is shared between you and target enemy. That's more or less what rank 1 does, except for you are the conduit now instead of your ally. So I think what needs to happen is that rank 3 needs to be completely rewritten.
Wait, if rank 1 and 2 serve the same purpose, then why don't we just scrap rank 2 because rank 1's appropriate?
Right, I like rank 1. I think we scrap the ability. I think that we the major question we have is, at least as far as I can tell, the major question we're having is what exactly does the mask do besides hide your HP bar? And then we'll be able to figure out what we want rank 2 to do, or if we want the mask to be at rank 2 instead of this prospective rank 2 that happens to be at rank 3 right now. So I don't know what the mask is going to do, but you had an idea earlier about taking instances of damage, switching damage to should, where is it?
Sort of like a temp shield.
It was if you take more than one instance of damage in a combat cycle, something starts happening. That
Oh, that'd
was
be kind of cool. Like a stacking shield that like
The
gets an
more instances
extra.
you take, the higher it goes percentage wise into a cap. Or
But I don't want to do a stack for this class. I want to avoid that since we have stacks in every other class. I think the idea
well,
is good.
why? Well, if you have stacks in every other class, why would we be avoiding
Um,
stacks?
It
bec-
gets really mathy and stacks are everywhere. Like if we want to put any stack interaction type classes like a cleanser, they'd have to go through like 30 different stacks on one person if every class was full of stacks.
right. Like think of the four classes that we're gonna finish for the humans, and then we have six other races to go through four classes each. So if we have three classes that work off of stacks in just the humans alone, and we assume that that's going to be the average, or let's even be conservative and say that two classes are going to work off stacks per race, then that means that we'll have 12 classes with stacks in addition to the three that we already have. So 15 of our 28 classes will have stacks, which I think will just result in way too many stack interactions, or like people having 8 different types of stacks on them at one time. And I'd like to try and figure out a way to get around that now. I think that the mask, what we're working on with rank 2, sort of does that. It provides you with a way to simulate what a stack or a charge would be doing, um, with an interaction that doesn't have to be called either. It's just a passive that you can sort of turn on or off, and even if you're turning it off, it's just giving you a different functionality to the kit.
Well, I think we can work around John's idea by having like something like the second instance of damage that you take gets reduced by
By a certain
X.
percentage, and
Percentage.
then each additional after that keeps doing percentages.
Well, I was thinking. I think that's probably a good idea, depending on which direction we choose to take the class. But JJ had an idea the other day, and when you said for each instance of damage after the first, it made me think that maybe this would work with it, especially after you talked about stacking armor. I think it'd be interesting if for each instance of damage after the first that you took, that you could distribute a mask out to an ally.
Oh, okay. And then in your kit, you'd have abilities to kind of poke yourself with damage to make this happen more often.
Right, and your allies are all getting their HP bars to the point. Basically, when the mask is on your allies, the enemy can't see their HP bar. Um, so it's an annoyance for the enemy. It's not something that's incredibly strong at rank 2 or 3 or anything like that. Uh, it allows you to proliferate them. And then you could have abilities that work off of masks being on people. But then it kind of does feel like a stack. That's the only issue I'm having.
You're gonna want the mask be on people, the same ability as the distribute mask.
Well, I was thinking of just putting it on the mask itself
Hmm.
and then
Well, the
having
thing is, if like you don't get like any significant bonuses from distributing a mask, then you're never gonna want to do it.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like, well, if we have mask at rank 2 and then we make the ability that works off of it rank 3,
Like the ability where proliferating it actually means something.
right, where you're targeting allies with masks on them.
Hmm. Yeah,
It
that would
makes sense. I mean, it would give the mask legitimacy to wanting to keep proliferating it without it being overpowered.
maybe you could put masks on enemies. Like later on, you just throw a mask on the enemy, and they're just like, what is this shit?"
Yeah, maybe it has different things it could do for versus allies. I think the thing that we run into there is just that it starts to feel like the Ridsmith. For those of you watching, the Ridsmith's main mechanic is they distribute stacks to enemies and allies, and there's a different effect for an enemy versus an ally, and he's proliferating things out across the battlefield. Um, well, I think it would be interesting to give allies your masks and have them gain this effect where the enemy can't see their HP bar. It just feels weirdly similar to me. Um, Even though I guess I was the one who proposed the idea. Well, I was. It was working off of an idea that JJ proposed the day before yesterday. But maybe if it's just one mask that you can give out, then that's okay.
If it's
Yeah.
if at the first instance it's only one mask you can really give out, then at later levels you gain the ability to do it to more, then it could become something a little bit more incentive.
Yeah. I don't know if this class is gonna be rampy or not. Like, the other day I said when you and Logan were talking about stuff that uh have less instances of things mean more. So like maybe instead of throwing masks everywhere, later on you get like one mask to put on a teammate, and it means like a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking along those lines just now. That it would be interesting to have it in that way. I just can't. I was thinking after we just discussed having multiple masks and then maybe bringing it down to a single mask. What I was thinking was maybe it makes it so that that ally can use all of your abilities. But then I realized that that was way too complicated. Not it didn't directly encourage you. And the only reason I really liked it was because it kind of fit the same flavor as that clone idea we had going earlier. And I really like the flavor of being deceitful and like switching masks and having multiple identities out at once. I really don't know. I don't know how we're going to do that in such a way that doesn't feel like a stack or a charge.
Mhm.
Feels HP bar. It feels like this has to interact with your health in a way, like in and of itself, and that's as far as I've gotten. It's got to do that.
So we're going with
Um,
that idea, the health
turn
management.
well, interaction with health is hard because you're either doing you're either raising health, doing something utilitarian wise to it, or you're increasing regen of some sort. I mean, those are the only really positive things I can think of that can be done to a health bar.
We
Um,
um we had an idea, John. Well, Logan and Kirby were mulling it over a lot, where you'd create clones of yourselves and you'd pretty much invest health into the clones, and then you'd be able to pretty much cash in on your health banks later on. And that was the more innovative way to play with health management.
Yeah,
Uh,
we were
Okay.
considering that the issue became that it was just way too much about health management rather than being about deception. Or at least the player was playing. You were playing through a character that felt like it was playing a health sub game rather than playing like a manipulation sub game, um, which didn't really fit the identity perfectly. But the the reason that I think it has to be health management is because the second part of the mask ability says when the mask is on, your HP bar cannot be seen by enemies and damage that would target you is not revealed. Like, if we like that effect on the mask, if we think that that's interesting and that it's worth keeping, and I don't know what other ideas we have that are better, although I guess
Okay.
we could brainstorm them, um, then this mask has to operate off of gaining some benefit from enemies either not extending into your health bar or overextending into your health bar. And so I guess the question becomes, what advantage do you derive?
Um, Actually, something that would be an interesting way to look at it is if this character is going to be manipulation, why wouldn't wearing the mask be somewhat of like a taunt, where you're more likely to be attacked by enemies
Well,
if you're wearing the mask?
that's what we've done with rank 1. If you are wearing the mask, you may become the target of an attack or an ability that targets an ally in an adjacent row.
Okay, I apologize. I must have not heard that.
Yeah, no problem. I don't think I ever actually said what it did. But it goes from when you have the mask off, you can transition the attack into an ally, and when you have it on, you can transition the attack into yourself. Which would do basic. We were working along the same lines, which is good. It's good that you thought through like that's what this should do. Um,
Now, as do we? I haven't actually seen the aesthetic design of this character because a lot of ideas when I come up with things, I generally need to get a gist of what the character looks like. I can get a personality, and then
sure.
based on the personality, I can figure out what.
The the issue with this character is that we're doing something. We're going for a duality of identity, or rather, actually, rather than duality of identity. Certainly that's part of it. We are creating a character who is not attached to their identity, um, who is not particularly attached to anything except for the the duty they're fulfilling, and even maybe that they're detached from. They don't associate with either gender. They don't associate with either form of living, mask on or off, which is what the kit should reflect. But because of that, we have a character who, at the early concept stages, we designed as being female, and who now needs to reflect a sort of more androgynous aesthetic.
The immediate thing that comes to mind when you talk about this character is a Harlequin.
Mhm.
Not the Batman style ones. The ones that Harley Quinn is actually based off of, the pseudo jester, the mask wearing jesters
That's
of
actually
Renaissance time.
initially what the class's name was.
Okay.
So you're thinking along
Um.
the correct lines,
Okay. Good.
or at least the same ones that we were thinking. Um, let me. Are you? If you're watching the stream, I can go get you or show you some concept art.
I am not currently watching the stream. I'm watching the chat. Because I'm currently working on some other things at
Sure. Let me
this point.
just send you the link then. For those watching, this is our concept art backlog. So this is something that we generally don't show to just anyone. That's the current direction that it's sort of going. Um,
I think when the mask is on, your resistance should be higher, but your damage output should be lower. Because if this character is all about duality, then you'd want, if you gain something, you have to lose something somewhere else, and it's sort of that decision and timing about things that I think that would work with a character like this.
Well, I sort of agree with you that there should be a trade-off, or I definitely agree with you that there should be a trade-off. Uh, we think that the two identities for the class are already with the rank one. We've determined what the identities are. One of the identities uses allies to divert aggression from enemies so that you can carry out your plans better. The other identity diverts damage to yourself for some yield. Um, and those are the two play styles that the Cabaretto will afford for going forward, I believe, with whatever trade offs are inherent to either of them. Um, we're just we're just not certain what both of those playstyles want out of this mask. Because technically, one style will be happening while the mask is not on. Like one, JJ says stance quite frequently, and I think that's the correct term. Um, one stance doesn't want to take damage or gains benefits from not taking damage. The other stance wants to take as much damage as it can without dying. And so the first conclusion we arrived at was that this was a health management class, but somehow that doesn't seem to fit.
Yeah, why it shouldn't necessarily be health management. I think there's other stats that you could manipulate to get the same effect as being a health management class.
Um, well, the other thing is that in our game, which I hate to add like so many complicated factors, but the issue is that we don't do any stat except for health and mana. We don't do any stat based abilities. At least not directly. There's nothing that buffs your attack. There's nothing that buffs your endurance. There's nothing that buffs your wisdom. And rarely will we make even reference to the stats themselves. In fact, I don't think there's one ability in the human classes that does it now, which we think is important. Buffs to us shouldn't be statistical. They should encourage you to play in a different way or adhere to different rules, as debuffs should as well. I think that interacting with stats is just the simplest form of doing that. The issue that we've run across is that stacks and charges end up being the most productive way of doing that, and if you have way too many of those, then the game becomes too complex or not very fun for the player. So, which other statistic, rather,
Well, I was thinking, I, yeah. Now that I see it that way, I mean, I thought you could add another layer, but then you'd have to change a lot of design work as it is with the idea of resistances.
mhm, there are damage types, and there is
Well,
one.
that could be an interesting thing is that you could change the damage type of that's being dealt to you
Yeah,
when you're wearing the mask.
we actually don't have. We only have one ability so far that works off of damage types. There's another thing that we could play around with that's already been played around with, uh, which are damage thresholds.
Ooh, Kirby.
Yes.
What if instead of this might take some doing, but instead of masking your health when you put a mask on, you appear as a copy of one of your teammates, and you have a ability where you can switch places with them. Um, so you can pretty much like pretend you're one of your teammates.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the horizontal the horizontal integration doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are on a row, so we can just represent you as being in either place, and it would randomly switch
Yeah,
you
like a
between
big cloud would poof up, and
spots.
then it
Okay.
would clear, and then there'd just be two
Okay.
of one person.
So when the mask is on, your HP bar cannot be seen by enemies, and the damage that would target you is not revealed. Okay, so let's. Okay. So at the beginning of each of your turns, you may choose between wearing or removing your mask. You choose, when you put, I want to say equip, but you're not really equipping the mask. When you
Maybe there's a name for the mask ability that you can
yeah,
refer to later on.
when you use ability name to use ability name to whatever. When you use the mask, just do that for now, comma. Uh, choose an ally on your row. They also gain the mask's effects and you appear as a copy of that ally. We'll see. I really like that idea.
It might be hard to code.
Implement, yeah.
Actually, not really all that
Well, like
hard.
code AI to fight against that.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It might be. I was talking with, I met with a whole bunch of coders earlier today, and there was one guy who seemed really enthusiastic about what we were doing and the likelihood of success and how we'd manage AI and behaviors. It seemed like it wasn't actually all that big of a deal. At least he seemed very confident.
Well,
So
that's good.
yeah, yeah, it's just about creating subroutines that create behaviors for units like a bandit, so that it acts stupider than like a caster would, for instance. And a caster would have a higher percentage of knowing which one was the real you. Like it would target the real one regardless of if it knew or not. Like cheating, basically.
Sort of clairvoyance on the whole situation.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's a 70% chance for the caster to target the correct one versus a 40% chance for a warrior to target the correct one. Get the AI subroutines, which doesn't feel great technically, but it would work, uh, and it wouldn't feel unfair to the player. At the beginning of each of your turns, you may choose between equipping or removing your mask. I'm going to say equipping, even if we have to make it like an extra slot, or something like that. We will. When the mask is equipped, your HP bar cannot be seen by enemies, and damage that would target you is not revealed. Oh, you know what would be interesting is if the mask were its own item. It took up like your head slot, and it gained stats every level.
Well, then you'd be barred from having
Headgear, yeah,
headgear. You can have it like um,
like a trinket or
kind of
something,
like an overlay on top of the headgear. Like I was talking about having unique, unique whatchamacallit
like instruments or
items.
stuff. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
for this class. So maybe they have their own slot
Yeah,
for this
for
instead
like a
of.
trinket. I think that might be kind of cool, and then we can add something else to the ability to make it interesting if we had to, or to balance it out in some way. However, we had to do it. Could maybe do that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. At the beginning of each of your turns, you may choose between equipping or removing your mask. When the mask is equipped, your HP bar cannot be seen by enemies, and damage that would target you is not revealed. When you equip the mask, choose an ally on your row. They also gain the mask's effects, and you appear as a copy of that ally for as long as your mask is equipped. I feel like once you cast an ability, the jig is up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fuck. That's the thing.
But at the same time, like, maybe there's a way to hide what you're doing.
It would depend what this kit like. Oh my
Oh,
god. What if you redirected the damage to who you're impersonating?
yeah. Okay, so hold on. When you equip the mask, choose an ally in your row. They also gain the mask's effects, and you appear as a copy of that ally. Period. Uh, either target. I while both of you are wearing both, for as long as both of you share the mask's effects, comma, you may cast each other's abilities. So now it reads, at the beginning of each of your turns, you may choose between equipping or removing your mask. The mask. Your mask. When the mask is equipped, your HP bar cannot be seen by enemies, and damage that would target you is not revealed. When you equip the mask, choose an ally on your row. They also gain the mask's effects, and you appear as a copy of that ally. For as long as both of you share the mask's effects, you may cast each other's abilities.
They cast each other's. That's hilarious.
Active or basic abilities
Uh,
to balance.
I think put like a little note there
Mm.
because I think we need to know what this class is gonna have at its
Active.
disposal.
Yeah, alright, so let me do this in bold. Active or basic. And I'll put asterisks.
Because that could get really overpowered depending on how it's done.
Yeah, we don't know what the implementation will look like yet but I think it makes sense and it's interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of stretches. I think now that the mask needs to be rank 3. For sure. It's too powerful to be a rank 2.
Yo, definitely.
What do you think, John?
Seems to work for me.
Alright, so that is generally about how long it takes at the beginning of design to get back into the swing of things and to become reacquainted with the kit if you are just starting on one. If you've had like weeks and weeks to process it and mull it over, generally it's just in the back of your head anyway, and you can say, okay, this interacts with this interacts with this. But usually you need about a 10-20 minute refresher period before you start. At least for new classes. And it might not be that way for the games that you guys are working on. For ours, it seems to. Uh, so, if we want the rank 2 to be a basic ability, and I think we do, because so far all of the humans have followed the active, basic, and passive within the first 3 abilities formula, then we need to figure out what you want to do instead of attacking on your turn. And something that interacts with you having a clone of your ally when you have the mask on. What's interesting now is that you can give like a tank the ability to taunt twice, or yeah, well, let's say they have a basic taunt, you can give them an active taunt.
Yeah.
The thing to recognize is that the person that you share the mask effects with, is only going to be able to use the mask version of your abilities.
Okay. That'd be a pretty good balancing factor.
Because the ability only works for as long as you're both affected by the mask. Which would, I guess, imply to me that they can only use the mask version. Um, so that's good. You can't have squishies just deferring attacks to other people. Kit. I wonder then what's compelling enough to bring you out of the mask. We need to make this basic be really strong without the mask on, and have an effect that's cool with the mask, but perhaps the ability outside the mask is better. Because then, even when you get it at rank 2, you'll still be happy that you have it. So, ability is better without the mask.
Oh, if they hold up, become the target of an attack and ability. Actually, that makes sense. If you ever end up taking damage as a Cabaretto and you're copying someone who has higher endurance than you, it's going to be pretty apparent.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Like you can stop the first instance of that with the active.
Well, actually, it doesn't show. Yeah. Okay. The thing is, JJ, actually, it doesn't show the damage numbers.
Wait, it doesn't show the numbers; it shows the health going down.
It doesn't show the health going down either. When the mask is equipped, your HP bar cannot be seen and by enemies, and damage that would target you is not revealed. So, like for instance, let's say they swing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a uh, pretty good workaround.
Yeah. Because they won't know how much damage they're doing. So what's the incentive for them to attack you? I wonder
That's
if
cool.
I wonder if the mask should drain HP now, or if that's too much. Because like the mask is really good.
Footnote it.
Yeah. When the mask is equipped, your HP bar cannot be seen by enemies, and damage that would target you is not revealed. Would equip the mask. Choose an ally on your row. also gain the mask effects in your first copy. Perhaps have the mask. Drain HP. And that would make it so that there is a downside to having it on. But as I think it's the same issue as before, JJ, where like just by the way that you're playing,
Minutes?
it'll be draining HP anyway.
What do you mean?
Because the things that your mask will allow you to do is redirect damage to yourself. So you'll want to redirect damage to yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, which should mean that you don't need to have some way to lose health attached to the mask. I think that would be redundant.
Right, the boots out. I can't believe you left them outside and everything else. Those are not the boots, just so you know, for future reference I was talking. The big ass Sorrel winter boots that are outside the door is what I thought.
By the way, Kirby and Josh, the chat is still empty.
That's fine. That happens. Did I just? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You told the design team.
Told the design team. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
They usually don't comment on it. Ability is better without the mask. So what do we want out of a basic ability? How do we make it better without the mask? If the first thing that the player sees is you may have target ally on your road, the target of an attack or ability that targets you. So it has to work with damage that you're taking, I guess. No. It would have to be the opposite. It would have to work with damage that you're deferring. And then the mask version works with damage that you're taking, but is less. Alright, we just need to figure out what it is. We can't balance around factors for something that we don't know. I don't think. It's really hard to do. I think that's the wrong way to approach. Ability is better without the mask. So the identity that we want is something that sends damage to your allies, allows you to get out of the way. Maybe this is something that does something if you are undamaged last turn. That's perfect. Sound great. Struggling. You're deferring damage. So let's do stream of consciousness. Bring damage or survivability. Ability and time. Execute plans. Matches the performance. If you're a Cabaretto, what do you gain from throwing your ally into the mix instead of you?
It's like, be like, attack him.
Yeah,
They
but
won't know which one they're attacking. It takes the fun out of trying to figure out what's real, though.
well, that effect can only be used when you don't have the mask on.
Okay.
The ability which makes you take damage is the one that is happening while the mask is on.
Wasn't that what the rank 1 does?
Yes, correct. The rank 1 has two different approaches. The first is that without the mask, have an ally become the target of damage that's intended for you. If you have the mask equipped, then you can become the target of damage intended for an. So this rank this rank 2, the side of it that operates without the mask has to be based on sending damage to your teammates. And I just don't know what the character in character is gaining out of that.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm just about done, at least on this race, with having things that take damage that's already been dealt and reapply it in some way. Like the Ridsmith has some, Cavalier has some.
I sadly must leave.
Okay, John. Thanks for helping out, bud.
Of course.
Um. Oh wow. Can't seem to make this work in my head.
Does the rank 1, 2, or does the rank 2 have to be a dual ability?
I think so. I was thinking about that, and I think that if we're emphasizing the playstyles being different when you put the mask on, take the mask off, at least the first two abilities have to revolve around that. It should sort of be like it's almost going to be a moment where the player was initially deceived as to how complex the class was. They thought that it was this, and now it actually operates in another way. And I think that's an interesting moment that should put them in the same mindset as the character. And maybe it falls at a narrative moment where that's exactly what happens, where you expect for something, for one thing to be happening, and then boom, the character carries through something completely unexpected.
Yeah.
I'm really stuck on what you want to be doing instead of attacking on your. That has to do with what you want, which is repositioning damage that isn't damage related.
Well, it can't be another, repositioning damage type thing.
Right? It's got to be something different, and it can't be stack or charge related. um, and it can't be stat related, and it can't be attack related, like making attacks related. So what exactly is it that we are relating it to? I did like that John brought up earlier. It started to make me reconsider the damage types and damage thresholds as mechanics that we can implement. They were put in there so we'd have more design space and so that certain things would be more balanced. And the only class that references, well, the Cavalier references it in one ability, and the Lost Strider references, to be more clear to viewers, the Cavalier has an ability that allows him to deal every type of damage when he attacks. So that gets around resistances to certain types of damage that might be on armor. And then the Lost Strider has an ability that allows him to elevate damage thresholds on weapons. And the way that weapons in our game work, is that there is a maximum damage that they can do, and weapons like daggers will have a lower maximum damage than something like a giant broadsword would. But basically, even if I roll a d20 and land on a 20 and was going to do a critical hit with like 500 damage, if my weapon only allows for me to deal 20, then I only deal 20 unless I have some way of getting around that damage threshold. And I think that's how most of our really beefy, really damagey sort of melee classes are going to get around uh, damage thresholds, or they will play with damage thresholds, because I think that'll be kind of fun. It'll feel fun for them to be breaking the rules,
Yeah.
even if it is sort of a restriction that we've imposed.
Okay.
But the reason that the Lost Rider doesn't need a ton of that is because he's attacking multiple times, whereas someone who's only attacking once a turn really needs that damage threshold stuff to come away. And it lets us balance critical hits if we choose to add those on a class.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that we play with. I don't want to force it by including resistances just because we can, or damage types just because we can here. And I don't even know if that necessarily makes sense to include it on a basic. Like, what would that be doing if we have damage types here? What would that be? We've just worked on repositioning damage from ourselves to enemies. Sorry, from ourselves to allies, and by proxy to enemies. So we're damaging enemies through one layer of obfuscation, approaching from the side, which is what the Cabaretto wants to do. How else do we approach from the side while using our allies as a resource? How do we do it at basic speed?
Maybe you have a feign damage move where it like deals the damage of an attack and then doubles it, so it looks like you did a lot more damage.
Interesting. Okay, so basically you would use the ability and it would appear as though it was just a regular attack.
Yeah,
And
it would like if you did 10 damage, it would show up as 20, even though they didn't actually do that. So it'd like bait out healers.
interesting. That would be a really cool way of like taking the mechanic of hiding your HP and sort of foreshadowing it. I just don't know if it works. Like, maybe that should come later, because I don't know if it's gonna work with what rank 1 does. That's a really cool idea, though. Attack that does more than that says it does more than it does.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Attack that says it does, and attack which deals damage. Of that.
If they fall to 0, then the effect expires because that don't make sense. Like, you know,
What,
like if their health says 0, like if this effect says they're dead, even though they're not, then it should just expire.
well, I had an idea. Well, right after you mentioned it, but I think that would take it. This idea would take it in the direction of a damage dealer. But the way that it would work is you hit someone with this ability that deals false damage, and most people will know that the damage is false after you've played around the Cabaretto a couple of times. Like, you'll see a hit that's huge, and you'll think,
Well,
okay,
if you're cloning someone
that's a good point.
that does a ton of damage.
True. Well, here's what I was thinking was basically it would do that fake damage, but then if you redirected damage with rank 1 to that enemy, that damage would become real.
Wait, if you would?
So you know how rank 1 allows you to have target ally on your row become the target of an attack or ability that targets you?
Yeah.
And then the targeting enemy receives direct damage equal to half the damage dealt?
Yes.
Okay, so if that enemy who dealt that damage is the one that you put fake damage on, the damage that was fake becomes real.
That's a way to double your damage.
Right.
And we already have that on different class.
Right. I would take it in the direction of a damage dealer, but I think it's interesting that if we're going to include something like this, that maybe instead of making the damage real, it reduces max health.
That would be a thing.
Because that gives you an avenue of attack that's not actually max health reduction. That would be really mean.
It'd be hilarious.
Does it need it?
No. Well, right now it doesn't need anything, so.
Right. But okay, so maybe you can reduce your max health and their max health, and that's the trade-off that balances it. And then this mask protects you by hiding how much health you actually have. Alright, so we need to figure out a way of making all of that work within the 3 abilities and not making it OP. Because I think that would be a really fun playstyle. So the fake damage, the damage that didn't actually happen, you have both the damage that actually happened and the damage that's doubled on top of that that's fake. The damage that's doubled on top of that that's fake would then be made to reduce their max health by that amount, and that's not even all that strong initially because they're already down from that amount of max health. It just becomes strong if you get it low enough to the point of actually infringing on their remaining HP and they can't be healed. I think that would be really cool. What do you think?
I think that'd be cool as well, yeah. It's got a lot of like anti-healing stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think this could be really cool. I mean, it is like another type of health management, but it's not all on you. You're putting it off on enemies instead. So, let's figure out how this all works. So the ability has to be better without the mask. Is it even going to involve the mask? Now that's a question. Maybe it doesn't have to now. Let's just type it up. Attack, target, enemy. This ability appears as a basic attack. Attack target enemy and deal double. Oh wow, that would actually nuts with the Strider. Dealt double damage. Attack target enemy and deal. Attack target enemy. Damage you deal this ability double. Damage you deal with this ability appears as though it were doubled. This ability appears as though it was doubled. But does not actually inflict. Damage you deal with this ability appears as though it were doubled. Oh, it. I learned word. It's telling me what. Word doesn't know anything. Okay. Damage you deal with this ability appears as though it were doubled, but does not actually inflict. It is not actually inflicted. Damage as damage you deal with this ability appears as though it were doubled, but is not actually inflicted. Appears to enemies. As though it doubled, but is not actually inflicted. To die. Damage doubled in this way. Hidden in this way. Pierced enemies as though it was damage doubled this way. Instead, shown true amount. At time would receive rank name. By the way, for those of you watching on Twitch, I apologize if we're not checking the chat. Our chat checker is gone. I'll start the pop-up right now. Try and check it as frequently as is possible. Again, our apologies. If I had two monitors, I would be checking it as I was doing this, but unfortunately, I don't have two monitors. You may be asking yourself, what kind of doesn't have two monitors? Frequently ask myself that same question. Time to receive damage from rank. At any time, enemy affected by 2 ability. Receive damage from rank ability name. That damage is the illusory damage is inflicted. Okay, are you ready for me to go through this?
Yeah.
Okay, 7 mana basic. Attack target enemy. Damage you deal with this ability appears to enemies as though it were doubled, but is not actually inflicted. If an enemy would appear to die from damage doubled in this way, instead they are shown the true amount. If at any time an enemy affected by rank 2 ability name would receive damage from rank 1 ability name, the illusory damage is inflicted.
Oh, okay. So it's a roundabout way to double your damage.
Right.
Okay.
You can double your damage, but in the meantime, as you stated with the rank 3, um, it's quite scary when you pair up with another melee. That was the thing that made me like it the most. Was, let's say that you have like a big orc warrior and they slam someone with damage, like a tremendous amount. They won't know whether that's real or not, and even if it is real, uh, they don't want to attack. Um, oh, maybe that's OP. Attack target enemy. Attack target enemy. Damage you deal with this ability appears to enemies as though it were doubled. This ability appears to enemies as though it were doubled. It's not actually inflicted. If any die from damage doubled this way, instead they are shown the true. At any time an enemy affected by rank 2 ability receive damage from rank 1. I have something I need to ask you when you have a second away from whatever you're working on doing.
What is it?
Um, so I realized something that's really broken about the ability, but I'd still like to have it implemented in a similar way.
What, that the Lost Strider can quadruple his damage very easily?
That is part of it. Uh, although to counterpoint that, his ability, which doubles damage, is a basic ability.
Oh, so you can't
Right.
do them both?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Although you could use it on an allied Lost Rider, and they could. Although still, they would have to use the damage threshold to get their damage quadruple. So it's balanced in that way. Or they would have to try and get their damage threshold. And actually, I think that this is technically better than double damage. But the issue is that you can almost always proc it so that you get that double damage.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say that you have an enemy, and that enemy is within your range, and you use your rank 1 ability. Or sorry, you use your rank 2 ability and you attack them, and they just think it's a regular attack that just happened to do a little bit more damage. Like it appears that the roll is correct, or if rolls are represented, then the roll appears correct and everything, and they take like 4 damage or something like that, or 8 damage even. Let's say. – then if that enemy tries to attack anyone on um, anyone on your row, then you can redirect that damage if you don't have the mask on and hit them and double the damage that's on them. If you have the mask on, then if they try and hit anyone on an adjacent row, you do the same thing. So this can really lock melees down, like a lot.
Mhm.
Of course, melees are the least susceptible.
I think the double damage thing is a mistake.
Is there a way that we can do it that's still interesting that isn't double damage?
Probably. I think the first half of the ability is pretty good at what it does, but the second half is just a way to do more damage in a way that we've already implemented in a different class. Although it might be more interestingly implemented than the other class.
Um. Well. Oh, hold on. Oh, sorry. It's not inflicted. The illusory damage is inflicted to their max HP.
Okay.
That was what I was missing.
So,
So what it lets us do is like you may be at like 50 HP or something with a maximum of 90 HP. But then go down to like 70 max HP or something like that. That doesn't immediately impact you, but if it happens turn over turn, and you're being reckless, you could go down to something like 30 max HP. And then your healer can't bump you back up anymore.
mm,
Reasonable way. So I guess you have to be really careful against the
or your HP will be a max of 0.
0. Yeah, and even if you're that actually gets around revives too.
Yeah, because
Come
you'd
back
be
with
like,
0
oh,
HP.
good, you're alive. Well, can't be full.
Okay, yeah, I actually really like this class. Now, I think that it's got a good identity at this point. And I think you were right that perhaps we didn't have to have an ability that interacted directly with you having the mask on or off, so long as it worked either way. Like this works well for protecting your row if you have the mask off, and it works well for protecting adjacent rows if you have the mask on. That's fine because it's supporting both styles of play. And actually, it works better with the mask on, I think, because you are probably a squishier target, so you'll take more damage, which will cause the illusory damage that they take. Oh, yeah. It'll cause the direct damage that they take to be higher. That doesn't exactly affect illusory damage. I guess that doesn't matter. It's fine that it's not better with the mask on. Okay. Alright, well, that feels very roguish. Check the chat real fast. No chat info. Okay. So, um, well, that's an ability. That's 3 abilities for the Cabaretto, and I actually think this time that we should keep these. The question is,
Yay.
yeah. The question is the rank 2 ability broken if 2 people can cast it? I think the answer is no.
No. It just makes your kid even more hilarious.
This is a good word. This kid is. I think people are going to really enjoy it.